Hello, folks. Before we begin today's show, I want to give a quick shout out to Idle Courses Academy. If you're looking to transition into the corporate instructional design space, you need the right guidance to do so. Kind of just, makes sense. Dr. Sargent and her team have done an incredible job of focusing on what's important to be a corporate instructional designer, like storyboarding, ID models and theories, authoring tools, project management tactics, and more. They even cover how to make your resume and portfolio stand out from the crowd and have an impressive completion rate, with their students working at organizations like Google, Salesforce, GM, Uber, Walmart, and Amazon. Also, you won't be going through this learning journey alone. You'll be studying alongside other inspiring instructional designers, as well as working with experienced mentors and coaches. And as an added bonus, you'll get a copy of my ebook, What I Wish I Knew Before Becoming an Instructional Designer. So check out the industry-recognized program that's been showing up in job descriptions as preferred training and education by going to idlecourses.com/academy. Enrollment begins on September 12th. So use my promo code Luke to save you $88 off your enrollments. And now, let's start the show. Hello, Learning Nerd Nation, and welcome on in to another fantastic, fun time where we are going to be talking about the joys of instructional design. I'm your host. My name is Dr. Luke Hobson. I'm a senior instructional designer and program manager at MIT. I'm also the author of the book called What I Wish I Knew Before Becoming an Instructional Designer. And my passion and my purpose is instructional design, hence this podcast, the blog, the YouTube channel, and all the other different things. I love being able to talk and share with you all about instructional design and diving on into some of the really deep conversations about our field and how to be able to navigate these waters, and just really everything about the instructional design field in general is kind of what I love to be able to talk about. And of course, you can find all my information over at drlukehobson.com. So I wanted to give you folks a bit of an update from the last podcast episode. I asked for your questions to do a different type of a feedback show where you write into me your instructional design questions. And of course, I keep everything anonymous when you write in, because some of you asked me some very personal organization questions. I wanted to make sure that no one got in trouble for asking some of these questions. And it was really interesting. I loved being able to hear more from you because, of course, when I asked for more questions, I got a whole bunch via email and LinkedIn, which is fantastic. The more I can do to serve you, the more I can share about these experiences, the more of it is going to help out everybody at the end of the day. And I had another idea that kind of came from this, because I realized that you're going to be hearing, of course, from my perspective about what to do, but I have many friends in instructional design who have also been doing this for years, and they can share their experiences and give you their perspectives and their answers on your questions as well. So I think in the future, you are going to see and hear a little bit of some tag teaming of instructional designers being able to answer your questions. So I'm going to bring some friends on to the show. We're going to tackle some of these things together, and hopefully it's just going to give you a more well-rounded and balanced out answer from hearing from multiple perspectives. So you can stay tuned for that one, because that is going to be fun, and I would love to be able to do some of those episodes in the future. So I promise you are going to be hearing some of those. But for today, I am actually going to be doing something a little bit different. I am going to be giving you part 1 of 3 of a type of a series. I've been talking now for months about the pros and cons and in-betweens of instructional design. I've already made some episodes about this in some different types of pieces online about blogs and different types of presentations for organizations and whatnot. But I really wanted to take things piece by piece and break it down, just so that way, if you were curious about the pros, you would have a pros episode. If you were curious about the cons, you would have a cons episode. So that is what's going to be coming about, is a 3-part series. 1 episode, the pros, 1, the cons, and then 1, the in-between. Now, to kind of add a bonus to this as well, too, each one of these episodes is going to have a video on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube right now, you're actually going to be able to see that video, and that's where this audio strip is going to be coming from. So once again, trying to take this type of multi-angled approach where I'm giving you all of these different forms of mediums, and whatever way you prefer to consume content, I am going to meet you in the middle and make sure to give you that information. And before we start this episode, the other last thing I wanted to be able to give you an update on is, yes, if you are wondering, if you've been seeing my posts on LinkedIn and seeing the post inside of the Facebook group as well for Learning Nerd Nation, you are going to see that I am working on an audiobook. Kind of makes sense. I have the voice, I have this podcast. Why wouldn't I turn my book into an audiobook? And the thing is that it's just taking me a lot of time. That is the real truth of the answer. I've been working on it. I've been trying for months. I finally put on my nose to the grindstone hat and saying that, okay, I gotta get this done. And some added motivation for me is that we are just coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the book being out, which is ridiculous. I don't know how it's already been a whole year since the book has been out. So for all of you who have purchased the book and have shared it online, a humongous thank you to you from me, just from being an incredible supporter for everything that I have been writing about and that I've been sharing. Your support means literally everything to me. And I can't wait to be able to create an audiobook to kind of pair up with that. I have been crushing audiobooks lately. I'm just finishing up listening to James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. And it's been interesting because I read the book before, but now actually hearing him, the author, read the book back to me, I'm noticing that I'm picking up a couple of different things where it's like, oh yeah, I must have just kind of brushed off that part of that chapter, or oh, that's right, I didn't do that follow-up activity, or whatever. So now it's giving me a more well-rounded perspective, and what I'm hoping for is that the audiobook that I am currently making for you is going to do that. So maybe you missed out on a point or two, or maybe you really didn't enjoy one part of it, but the way that I am going to be speaking about it and diving on in a bit more, maybe it's going to bring that point to life. So whatever it is, and some of you have also just told me too that you like hearing the sound of my voice and that you want me to read you the book, because the way that I talk and the way that the book was written was very conversational in nature. That was the whole point, is that if you and I were hanging out inside of a coffee shop and you just said, hey, Luke, give me all of your information, do a brain dump, do a deep dive. What's everything I wish that I knew about before becoming an instructional designer all about? And it's, hey, here you go. Here's all the things that if I had known, if I had a time machine, if I can go back in time, this is what I would tell myself. So hence, the entire point of the audiobook should be pairing up with that one, and I am hoping that is going to be out soon. I am not going to give myself a deadline recording that because I feel like that is self-sabotage, but I am working on it. All right, with all of that housekeeping, of all that stuff being said, now let's finally start the episode and hear more about, in my opinion, the pros of instructional design. So you are thinking about becoming an instructional designer, and you've thought enough to figure out that you should make a pros and a cons list. Well, you are really smart. And welcome on in to the videos that are going to be documenting literally that. In the next couple of videos as a part of this series, I'm going to be making, and this is what you are watching right now, a pros video, a cons video, and also like an in-between video. There's a couple of gray area types of parts of my job that I don't know if they're a pro or a con, but I just want to be honest with you and tell you what I think about them. So today, let's talk about the pros when it comes to being an instructional designer. 4 different pros come to mind, and we're going to be breaking these down. Of course, let me also say too, and make sure that I definitely make this a very clear point, these are my pros, and the future videos, my cons, and my in-betweens, my neutral points. Still need a better term for those. Everything that I'm going to be saying is basically my opinion, my perspective, and if you are currently an instructional designer, perhaps you agree with these. Also, I know because I've talked about pros and cons before in different types of mediums of the blog and the podcast that some people actually disagree with me, and some of my cons are actually their pros and vice versa. So it's really interesting. This is all just a way to say that different perspectives are really going to help you to understand more about the instructional design field, but let me at least give you my pros. So let's go through my top 4. Pro number 1, Your creative opportunities are endless. Do you enjoy being creative? Are you a problem solver? Do you like critical thinking? Do you like being given a puzzle and then saying, I'm going to figure this out? If yes to any of those questions, well then, hey, welcome on in to being an instructional designer. Creativity is the name of the game, and that is what makes our jobs so cool when it comes to designing the learning experience for our learners and for our students. It's really only one of the types of fields that I can think about where essentially you are given this type of a weird way, like you're given this artistic freedom to be able to figure out when you're partnering with a subject matter expert, what exactly is your product going to look like? And whether it's a course, a training, a program, a workshop, a webinar, or whatever it is, what at the end of the day is the product going to look like? How are you going to design it? How are you going to build it? How are you going to know when the outcomes have been met for your learners and for your students? How do you know if they are on track? You get to build out everything from start to finish, and that by far is the coolest part of my job. If we do a type of activity, let's just do this for the fun of us. Let's say you're designing a course on networking. Now, if I was to say, hypothetically speaking, the learners just watch a video about networking for 5 minutes. Now, you need to use your creativity to figure out what type of follow-up activity is going to be coming right after that video. Then you need to figure out, okay, what activity aligns with the main types of objectives that I want them to hit for this week and for the main overall entire learning objectives for the program. What makes sense? What is going to resonate with them? What is actually going to be meaningful? And you can do this in so many different ways when it comes to networking and, of course, when it comes to everything else. Perhaps your networking activity is going to make folks go and use Slack. Perhaps it's going to be with a discussion board or a virtual platform like GatherTown or Spot. Or perhaps you're going to ask them to draw out their network on a piece of paper and try to be able to identify what types of different connections that they can bridge and build that gap within network A and then within network B. You can do so many different types of things that is just so interesting to think about. If somebody gave you a blank canvas and said, hey, this is what we're trying to do, here's the end goal, now work your way backwards from there, it's pretty fascinating. And it's really cool that someone is going to pay you for a living to do that. Now, whether you want to use different types of learning techniques when it comes to scenario-based learning or project-based learning or team-based or for case studies or for, there's a million different ways you can do different types of things. Those are just a few off the top of my head, but you can do so many different types of methods that become incredibly effective when it comes to learning. And one of my favorite parts about being creative as being an instructional designer is that I practice an activity that is called course mapping. Now, if you've never heard of course mapping before, it is exactly what it sounds. You are mapping out the entire thing from start to finish and be able to have a visual to see what your students or what your learners are going to be going through with every single step, every click, every page, every whatever it is, depending upon your learning platform or your modality for what it is you're trying to be able to deliver. But for me, I use something extremely simple. I'll just use Google Sheets or an Excel file. That's really it. And I am going through every single little block and I am mapping out what people are doing. Are they first going through, let's say they're starting off and the goal is that I want to be able to apply their prior knowledge from the last week. What do I want them to be able to do? Well, let's incorporate a type of a reading to make sure that we are engaging from last week's material. Then from a reading, they're going to be going over into a video. From a video, it's going to have a poll question at the end of that. From the poll question, it's then going to have a practice activity that's going to allow the students, allow the learners to be able to build up their self-confidence, their momentum, their self-efficacy, their confidence in their self. Then from the practice question, there's going to be another video. And then from there, it's going into an assessment item. Whatever you want to be able to use for an assessment goes into that point. Then a discussion. And then at the end, let's do a reflection. Let's tie in everything together with all that they have just experienced and allow the information to really sink in for a second and just think about what in their past experiences of what they know now, what would they do differently? What would they change? Or perhaps, let's say, thinking about the future. The next time you encounter that, what is it that you were exactly going to do? And that is an example of just mapping out one little part of a section of a course. Now, for some of the courses that I designed, that one little part ends up, let's say, we're going to do that 16 times. And that is the entire learning experience that we can then see with row after row after row within the Google Sheet or within the Excel sheet. And you can exactly see what someone experiences with every single step. Now, of course, I just mentioned a ton of different types of boxes when it comes to the content with the activities and with the assessments, but you can do that, and you are going to be the person working with your subject matter expert, of course, working within the guidelines of your organization, your budget, your resources, what you can actually do. Let's be realistic in saying that it does definitely comes down to that. But if you do have free reign to be able to really be creative, you can wow people. And when you get that feedback from learners or from students about how much they enjoyed what it is that they experienced from everything you designed, there is no better feeling. It is the coolest thing in the world. The next pro is that subject matter experts are valuable allies. Now, subject matter experts, or SMEs as we call them, they can have a negative reputation. And unfortunately, if you Google SMEs, that actually pops up quite a bit. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There are some not nice people out there in the world. And if you happen to work with them, then yeah, that's not going to change. It's who they are, unfortunately. I will say, though, for the 99% of SMEs that I have worked with over the years, they have been wonderful, awesome, extremely intelligent, and wonderful people just to work with. And I have found that when you approach working with subject matter experts from a stance of genuine curiosity, you are authentic, you are being genuine and saying that you are certainly curious about their perspective. And when you can explain more about how you can provide value to the project, why an instructional designer is assigned to work with this person, and then show how incredible it can be when you put your minds together, what you can really develop, what you can really design, but is going to just impress learners and students, then it's a beautiful thing. Now, I will say that working with subject matter experts, once I figured out my own framework around how do I work with other people and do it effectively, that's when this became a pro. Before, I did not understand working with other people. It really didn't go so well. No one knew what instructional design was. I was met with a lot of resistance until finally I created some strategies around, there has to be a better way of working with other people. Let me figure out how I'm going to do this. So once I started to use that, once I started to approach things from a stance of curiosity, once I started to put on like an interviewer hat and really get to know more about the person, their preferences, their work history, their style, and then I incorporated my own into things, it became a lot better. And I found that for many of these subject matter experts who I work with them consistently. It's not just on a 2-month project and then it's like, peace out. No, this person could very well come back within 6 months or a year or longer. And of course, if this person becomes your champion, if your subject matter expert loves working with you so much that they go and brag to their colleagues and their friends about how awesome their product came out, and of course, you are the center around why that was so great, that's a pretty cool feeling. And if you can keep on doing that, obviously you are going to be happy. Your organization is going to be happy that you're doing so well and bringing in more business. And it really does take an extra amount of effort to be able to work with subject matter experts and to really build those relationships. But once you do, then it's just awesome. It's an incredible type of a feeling. And some of the subject matter experts who I still work with to this day, we have really created amazing working relationships and friendships, and they have offered me different forms of advice. They have given me plenty of different things to think about within my own career about how I can do better. And that is something that I definitely never took for granted, is that for some of these people, you're working with them, they have so much knowledge in one particular area, and you get to work with that person and you get to try to be able to extract that information out of their heads, put it with what you know. And of course, you're going to be learning along the way about different types of topics. For some of the leadership programs I developed over the years, I have 100% incorporated some of their techniques and their strategies into what it is that I do and how I communicate and how I work with other people. Now, for some of my friends who are also in instructional design, it's kind of funny because some people will make, let's say, an accounting program, and all of a sudden they're like, wow, now I'm doing my taxes and this is just so easy. I know exactly what this is. And it's not that surprising to hear the different types of areas you pick up a new strength because you're working with someone. You now essentially have this person to try to be able to coach you on the content, and then therefore you get to actually go and design that into the experience with what it is that you know about how it's going to be effective when working with other people. And the last thing that I need to say about working with subject matter experts is that we live in a political world. Like it or not, we do. And if you have a valuable ally in your corner, someone who has political influence and power at the organization, and they like you, well, that's going to be pretty good for you in the future if a circumstance or if a situation comes about or whatever it is. You want to have someone in your corner who's going to help when it comes to making a coalition, when it comes to forming a group type of opinion. Let's say you're trying to influence a decision, and it's not just, hey, I want to be able to do this. It's, oh, also so-and-so agrees with me and their colleague agrees with them. And now there's strength in numbers. Now you can try to be able to use your influence, use your persuasion tactics a little bit more. And that is part of it. That is honestly a part of it when it comes to building out that network, when it comes to working with subject matter experts. Obviously, please don't take advantage of that. But that's just something that I found where if I needed a favor and I just called this person to say like, hey, I'm really struggling with this. Do you have any ideas? And all of a sudden they're like, let me make a phone call. I'll be right back. And then I'll get a phone call later and they're like, yeah, Luke is taken care of. You're all set. It's like, oh, thanks. So it's happened to me before. I know it can happen to you as well. And if you are struggling, by the way, when it comes to working with subject matter experts and all of this, you're just like the entire time you're shaking your head, you're like, I still struggle. This is still really, really hard for me. I do have an entire course over on EduFlow Academy when it comes to exactly this topic with collaborating and building relationships with subject matter experts. If you want to know more about the exact framework that I use, I will teach you all I know with that entire 2-week course. So you can go ahead and find it at this link that is right above where I am pointing my finger. And the third pro is that you are always learning. If you consider yourself a lifelong learner, instructional design is for you. You're already going to be learning about a whole different type of skill set with just becoming an instructional designer. For instance, when it comes to leadership, budgeting, research, multimedia, communication, obviously design, and much more. There is a wide variety of a skill set that you are going to build and develop over time if you become, or when I should say, you become an instructional designer. And that is incredibly helpful. If you go and transition from being an instructional designer 5 years from now into a different position, you're going to be able to see a bunch of the things when it comes to qualifications and skill sets that folks are looking for. You're probably already going to be able to do them as an instructional designer. So that is incredibly helpful. The fun part about this job, just to kind of build on learning new skills though, by the way, is that whatever you are designing, you are just going to naturally pick up and learn more about, which is just so fascinating when you have literally no knowledge in one entire area. And then all of a sudden, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, you're having a conversation with somebody and you were able to actually carry on with that conversation about said topic you designed the course or the program around, and you don't sound like an idiot. You're like, yeah, actually, I can carry on a conversation. I'm somewhat intelligent about this subject matter now. It's pretty fascinating. I know that one of the things that I knew nothing about, absolutely zero, nada, nothing, was 3D printing. Did not have a clue about how 3D printing works or anything really of the sort. And then I developed a 3D printing program with some of my colleagues, and I was working with them on a daily basis with everything. And then all of a sudden, I began to notice that I knew what it was that people were talking about. I would watch a YouTube video about 3D printing, and I could actually understand half the jargon. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. I had no idea, but I was going to pick up so much information because as you are working with somebody, going back to the subject matter tip, as you are working with somebody and you are trying to figure out what goes with what, with different types of follow-up activities or assessments or content, you, by the process, end up learning quite a bit. And it's really, really fascinating to see how much information sticks even once the entire design process has concluded. So it's really interesting. If you find yourself just watching YouTube or the History Channel, or you're going through and diving on in through a whole bunch of different types of articles because you were just curious about something, this is for you then. When it comes to instructional design, you are always learning something new. You will become a lifelong learner. You will never get bored of when it comes to absorbing new information and new knowledge. It is fascinating. So that is definitely a pro of the job as well. Now, last but absolutely not least, the fourth pro is the instructional design community. If you are watching this video, I guarantee that you have talked to at least one instructional designer before, and the feedback I always hear from other instructional designers is like, wow, everyone in this field's so friendly and helpful. They just share all this stuff all the time, and it's really great. It's like, yeah, we have a legitimate, wonderful community of instructional designers. And I don't just mean in one particular group or a page or something like that. It's the entire field. That if you were to go and to talk with people and do like a networking event or to go to a conference or just to go and send a message over to somebody on LinkedIn and ask, do you have time to do a virtual coffee chat and we can just sit down and talk about things and nerd out about instructional design. It is really surprising how many incredibly intelligent and wonderful people that there are specifically within the instructional design field. I can't say enough about that. I currently run two different groups. One of them is over on Facebook for instructional designers. The other one is our LinkedIn group for Learning Nerd Nation. And same thing, I just met so many incredible, wonderful, intelligent people over the years. And I kept on hearing about how from a lot of people were saying that they wanted to be able to find their community. So I kept on trying to build places for people to go and for people to gather. But overall, I can't say enough about the entire field in general. Well, my learning nerds, that is all I have for you today. I hope you liked this video. Please be sure to watch the other videos about the cons of instructional design and the gray area as well, that in between, because I really want you to have a full perspective about the field. I clearly love what it is that I do. I make content on the internet about instructional design. I am an instructional designer. I wrote a book about instructional design. It's safe to say that I love this field. But once again, I want you to have a realistic perspective, see multiple viewpoints, multiple angles. So please be sure to watch those other ones as well before doing anything else. But tell me, go down into the comment below and tell me, what was your favorite pro on this entire list? Or was there a pro that I didn't mention inside of this video and you thought that I should have? But hey, folks, that is all I have for you today. Stay nerdy out there, and I'll talk to you next time.